fantastic. This is the best prepared that any chorus has been for any performances I've done in the years I've come to Detroit. And then from then on, it was Norah this, Norah that. I had a name. You know, I was a real person. So on the classical music concert, the Broadway concert, classical Broadway, he even asked my input on the pieces to be performed at that. But unfortunately, he died in 2009. John Morris Russell, who is now the director of the Cincinnati Pops Orchestra, and worked under Eric Kunzo, put together a Music of the Night concert, a tribute to the late Eric Kunzo. And then in 2011, I put together a chorus for the evening of Rodgers and Hammerstein concert with Jonathan Tunick, this Emmy, Grammy, Tony, and Oscar award-winning conductor and arranger. Ellington performances under David Berger's direction. David Berger is a world-renowned authority in Duke Ellington's music. In fact, he enjoyed our collaboration so much that I had an opportunity of going to New York last December and working with a couple of choruses for performances of Duke Ellington's Sacred Works and his Nutcracker Suite at Harlem's Apollo Theater. So then Jack Everly, we performance of Sci-Fi concert with George Takei as a guest performer. A little nostalgic concert under the direction of John Odo, who is a fine orchestrator. You might not know the name, but he was music director for Rosemary Clooney, and Clooney was Debbie Boone's mother-in-law. He did everything from the piano, conducting, and the whole thing. Then last year, we performed the music of Tim Burton movies program right from London. It was the American premiere. It was a sold-out house. What's so complicated about this? Well, the fact is, we really didn't get the music, all of the music, until 10 days before the performance. Imagine that, trying to pull things together at the last minute. And then finally, the Dundee Tweedle, which Concert Crowd, the Detroit Choral Society spent the entire fall semester working on. We had hoped at some point, as you can see, most of our work with the Detroit Symphony Orchestra has been on Pops concerts. So finally, we had the opportunity of working with the music director for the Detroit Symphony Orchestra on a world premiere by a world-class Pulitzer Prize-winning composer. So that's a little bit of my journey back in time. Dundee Tweedle, what is Dundee Tweedle? Well, I'm a man of handouts. Here it is. The second sheet. This pretty much gives you a short description and a scene-by-scene synopsis of this work. It's total nonsense. Don't expect it to make any sense. It says here it's 80 minutes long, actually it's 90 minutes long. Instead of 4 chapters, Tweedledee, Tweedledum, from Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. It's in 10 scenes with the finale, and it's written for narrator, 4 solo voices, and there's even an opera within an opera which is based on the poem by Lewis Carroll, The Walrus and the Carpenter, that most of us had memorized when we were in grade school. The second page is The Walrus and the Carpenter poem. So let's listen to what Teddy Abrams, who works with the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, says about this piece. Let's click on the pre-concert footage.
Good afternoon and welcome to this webcast with the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, a very, very special performance, as they all are, but this one in particular is fascinating because we have 2 wonderful works, the first of which is a Mozart concerto, and then the second of which is a world premiere of a sprawling, massive, extraordinary statement by the composer David Del Tredici. And it's not every day that we get to present a world premiere, especially of a piece of this scope. And it's basically an opera. In fact, David told me that it is an opera, although there's no real staging elements of it. But it does include a large symphony orchestra, a full chorus, 4 soloists, and somewhat unusually, a narrator. And I'm very happy to have with me here Alexandra Silber, who is the narrator for this performance. So Alexandra, thank you so much for joining me. And so tell us a little bit about yourself, because how did you get to become the narrator of this wonderful world premiere? Where do you come from? What's your musical background?
Well, thrillingly, I'm actually from the Metro Detroit area. I grew up in Birmingham, went to Groves High School, and eventually to Interlochen Arts Academy in Northern Michigan. And so this is actually my debut with the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, and what a thrilling debut to be making.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And do you have a background then?
Okay, in music, a little bit, you said, but primarily acting. This is the score, this is the piano score. The piano score, Reduction, the Dunby Tweedle. Okay, Leonard Slavkin, as I mentioned before, is a Pulitzer Prize-winning composer. He's about 76 years old. He's written a diverse repertoire. He began his career by writing serial music, very atonal music, but eventually became the proponent of neo-romantic music, which pretty much reflects the style that goes back to the 19th century, more tonal music. So let's listen to a couple of things that Slavkin says about the composer, and you'll see him actually working a little bit.
David is played often enough that he's an accepted figure in the musical pantheon. One of the American originals, a profound influence on so many others, particularly those who create music.
He is able to slip in and out of almost any musical genre that he has ever come in contact with.
David's music can easily be put into three categories. The first were 12-tone. They were very much music of the time, music of the 60s and 70s. And then we moved into the Alice pieces, where tonality came screaming and roaring back. And then, I guess over the last 20 years or so, he's been exploring his own sexuality. It's about not being afraid, ashamed, embarrassed, but rather saying, I'm proud of who I am. David was the first person to really address this in the world of the musical art, at least in the so-called classical industry.
You have this.
Thank you. Okay. So how do we get involved in this major project? Last March, I was in Dallas, Texas, at the annual American Choral Directors Association's convention. I ran into a friend of mine, Jerry Blackstone, who directs the UMS Choral Union. And usually it's the choral union that does these major works, these big works. I asked Jerry why he decided not to do this work. And he said, well, Norah, it's a very complex piece. It's a kind of piece that would require a lot of time, more time than he could possibly give, more time than his group would give. And also, he said that it's a very collegiate piece, that it would be work that would be performed by a college ensemble, not by a community ensemble. And I agree with him, having gotten into it. So, how did I get involved in it? It's last January, got an email from Eric Ronmark, who's the artistic administrator for the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. Eric wrote, Dear Norah, I believe my colleague Charles Burke let you know that I would contact you. I have a really exciting collaboration for you to consider. The DSO is giving the world premiere of an oratorio by David Del Tredici next November, Thanksgiving weekend. The work entitled Dunby Tweedle is the final installment in Alice series. It's scored for orchestra, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I would love to collaborate with you on putting together a choir for this premiere. Okay, so John Vanderweg, who was the chair at the time of our music department, and I talked about this for about 5 minutes. And so, even though I had never seen the score, and the score would be available for a couple of months, John quickly responded to Eric and said, Dear Eric, thank you for this kind invitation. On behalf of the department of ours and our students, we are pleased to accept the engagement. Because of the timing with rehearsal performance over our usual Thanksgiving holiday, I'd like to request that Monday, November 25th, the proposed rehearsal date be kept as much as possible. He goes on and talks about various other things. But again, before we even had a chance to see the score, we were saying yes. The question I often ask myself, if I had a chance to see the score first, would I have said yes? I don't think so. Had a chance to hear the work first, would I have said yes? Probably not. But anyway, kind of an intense work. In fact, I'm still under therapy trying to get over it. But anyway, there actually, as it turned out, was a recording of this work, part of the work, the first 20 minutes that was presented about maybe 7 or 8 years ago at some impresario meeting in New York. It was a hope that David Oshwedici would be able to entice someone to actually pick up this piece and underwrite it. But anyway, let's, in an attempt to give us a sense of how this piece is put together, Oshwedici, realizing that there was no recording of the whole work, he decided to sit down at his piano one day and sing and play the whole thing. Wasn't that great? Do you hear what I said? Sit down at the piano and play and sing the whole thing. A little bit of it. Flawless performance.
We didn't get it for two similar parts.
That's supposed to be practice.
You gotta hear this though.
It is. It was still reading.
It was really.
They were standing under a tree, each with an arm around the other's neck, and Alice knew which was which because one of them had Dun embroidered on his collar and the other D. I suppose they've each got Tweedle round at the back of the collar, she said to herself. They stood so still that she quite forgot they were alive, and she was just going round to see if the word Tweedle was written on the back of each one of their collars when she was startled by a voice coming from the one marked Dun. If you think we're waxworks, he said, you ought to pay, you know. Waxworks weren't made to be looked at for nothing, nohow. Contrariwise, out of the one marked D, if you think we're alive, you ought to speak. I'm sure I'm very sorry, was all Alice could say. For the words of the old song kept ringing through her head, like the ticking of a clock. She could hardly make out what she was saying. Tweedledum and Tweedledee, to have a backbone. For Tweedledum said Tweedledee had spoiled his nice new rattle, had spoiled his nice new rattle, had spoiled his nice new rattle. Just then came down a monstrous crow, as black as a tar barrel, which frightened both the heroes, so they quite forgot their quarrel. They quite forgot their quarrel. They quite forgot their quarrel. Tweedledum and Tweedledee agreed to have a battle. For Tweedledum and Tweedledee had spoiled his nice new rattle. Just then came down a monstrous crow, black as a tar, which frightened both the heroes, so it frightened both the heroes, so it frightened both the heroes, frightened both the heroes, frightened both the heroes, so they quite forgot their. I know what you're thinking about, said Tweedledum, but it isn't so nohow. Quite forgot there? Contrariwise, continued Tweedledee, if it was so, it might be, and if it were so, it would be, but as it ain't, it isn't. That's logic.
When I met Doug Oshwedici, he asked if I found the recording helpful. Of
I
course.
take it when you accepted the job of this thing, you'd never heard that, right?
I'd never heard that. But I was impressed with the guy. I knew I was going to be preparing to work that had been written by a genius. No question about that. No question about that at all. Let's see what happened. Now he wrote it, he orchestrated the whole thing. I mean, now this is the performance.
They were standing under a tree, each with an arm round the other's neck, and Alice knew which was which in a moment, because one of them had "Dum" embroidered on his collar, and the other "D." I suppose they've each got "Tweedle" round at the back of the collar, she said to herself. They stood so still that she quite forgot they were alive, and she was just going round to see if the word "Tweedle" was written at the back of each collar, when she was startled by a voice coming from the one marked "Dum." "If you think well waxworks," he said, "you ought to pay, you know. Waxworks weren't made to be looked at for nothing, nohow." "Country anyways," added the one marked "D." "If you think we're alive, you ought to speak." "I'm sure I'm very sorry," was all Alice could say. For the words of the old song kept ringing through her head like the ticking of a clock, and she could hardly help saying them out loud.
Tweedle-tom and
Tweedledee,
agree to
have a battle,
for Tweedle-tom
said Tweedledee,
had spoiled his nice new hat,
and spoiled his nice new rattle.
had spoiled his nice new rattle. Just then flew down a
Monstrous crow,
as black
at our barrel,
which frightened both our heroes so.
they quite forgot their quarrel.
They quite forgot their quarrel.
They quite forgot their
Quite forgot their.
quite forgot their
Quite forgot their.
quarrel.
Quarrel.
Quarrel. I know what you're thinking about, said Tweedledum, but it isn't so.
It really was fascinating though to see the transference from the piano version to the orchestral version. I think even so for our students, particularly the composer types. How it all begins with a very simple concept. Okay, let's go on. Now, the question, as I said, is a very difficult piece. There are a couple of people in the room that participated in it. Was it hard or was it?
That's an understatement. The most difficult piece ever.
Did you get anything from me that was helpful?
Continually, yes. Counting, making, sure that you're accurate. Yeah.
That,
Yes.
right. With MIDI files, I took some of the more difficult sections
Yes.
and entered in Finale software, saved the MIDI files, and got the CDs to the students and to the members of the Detroit Choral Society. So let's look at some music for a moment here. Let's see. It's called Scene 8, The Moral. Okay. And just following the vocal lines, you can see what I did. Okay, as a way of providing rehearsal help for the students and the singers between our rehearsals. page 211. We'll go on. Page 212.
I think Marcy should sing along.
Yes, right. It's stuck in my.
Page 79. Page 215. Okay, let's go to the actual performance. Let's go back to the first page. It was helpful, I'm thinking. One thing I had to teach teachers, I teach people how to count. That was,
I hate that too.
I know, I really count, especially this when you have different rhythms. Here we go. This is what it ended up being in the performance. Still, you hear a voice that came in early, but it's live. So. Person's now deceived.
You don't know all those people live. In the actual performance? Oh, man.
Certain things happen.
It's really unforgivable.
Keep throwing up against the wall, hoping something else. Here we go. one of the easier sections of the piece. Kidding, huh? The whole piece is based on a little motive. The whole piece is based on that, those few notes. Plays an inversion, retrograde inversion. It's amazing. Vertically, horizontally, just a little motive. Kept the whole piece together. We'll skip over the Red King snoring, but that was an interesting section in which we snored with the orchestra. Another thing just to mention, even after this book had been beautifully, actually, I want to pass around just some of Del Tredici's parts of the score, handwritten by the composer. Okay. Anyway, got from that to a piano reduction for the chorus, for the soloists. Boozy and Hawks spent probably 5 months working on this. And of course, after it come out, they realized, oh, there's all kinds of mistakes. So they provided me with 6 pages of errata. 6 pages of errata. And I gave you actually 2 of the pages of errata, of mistakes.
Errata is
It's
Latin for
errors, exactly. Pages of errors. Pages that are supposed to be replaced, of course, you never got to replace pages. Most of it had to do with dynamic markings. Although there was a couple of sections in which I literally had to copy from an online score, cut out replacement sections of various systems, and have students paste them to the pages that were so that they can sing the part. So, what else can I say about Dum Di Tuito? Well, let's talk about the week of the performance. That Monday, November 25th, there was a piano performance of sorts. I conducted an opening rehearsal around noontime. That evening, we met Leonard Slatkin and David Del Tredici. Came to rehearsal. Any comments about the rehearsal, people who were there?
It was intense to have both the conductor and the composer, there.
I thought it was interesting because I could bring my phone up and I could get a picture of Duncan, Slatkin, and Tredici in the same frame.
All that genius at one time.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Any other comments about the rehearsal?
Well, about the piece in general?
No, not about the piece. No.
Just this, the rehearsal.
Not about the piece.
I was shocked as to how well it went, and it still didn't go that well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it was intense.
Extremely intense, I agree. That Tuesday evening of Thanksgiving week, there was a rehearsal with the orchestra. Of course, it dealt with the whole amplification issue, which was required so that the soloist and the chorus could be heard. We had a break on Wednesday in preparation for Thanksgiving turkey, and then Friday we were back at Orchestra Hall. Friday it was strictly a straight run-through. I think Slatkin really wanted to know exactly how long this piece was. It was a little over 90 minutes. The Sunday performance was better than the Saturday performance. What did the media think of it? Well, let's look at some of the reviews. I like what Slatkin said. He published this in his blog on page 2, the second paragraph. He says, how does one describe it? Outlandish, surreal, crazy, all of the above and more. With 4 solo singers, narrator, and chorus, it is the most ambitious Alice played piece yet. And 80 minutes, the longest. We painstakingly prepared the work, and by the time we came to the performance, we knew we had something special on our hands. The next paragraph he mentions that our chorus came from Wayne University and met the challenges of the demanding vocal score, including rhythmic scoring. So for the most part, I think it was very, very positive. Both the next one, entitled Dum Di Tuito, moves long, fast, with a fast and energetic score. This critic, George, yeah, I collated them myself, so I know you have everything. Okay, the concerns with amplification, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 paragraph down, and just the mere loudness of the piece, though at times marred the performance. And we talked about the narrator, Alexander Silva, We had to bellow to be heard above the din of the orchestra and the Wayne State Symphonic Choir, and words were lost at times, which is unfortunate. Let's see. But this person did write some kind words about us. I'm trying to think where. Oh, the very last line of this first page. It said the Wayne State Symphonic Chorus, under the death direction of Norah, Duncan IV, barely had time to catch their breath, singing the demanding score, but they soldiered on with applause.
Here.
Good.
You probably wrote that line for him, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. It's my cousin, actually.
Yeah.
And then the Detroit Free Press, Mark Stryker, was generally pleased with it. But if you turn the page over or go to the next page, he mentioned that there are flaws. This is, of course, a world premiere. He mentioned the concerns about amplification. What I thought was kind of fascinating was what he says in the next paragraph. That's the 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph down. Says, it's also worth noting that the web broadcast Sunday was in many ways more satisfying than Saturday because the excellent singers came through loud and clear. Maybe the piece ultimately will work best via recording and video. And I'd love to see what a creative stage director might do with the work. Wayne State's mentioned in the next paragraph. Choir did itself proud. So, good review. And then finally, we have a classical source. Colin Anderson wrote, says, this Sunday afternoon concert was another gift to the world of Detroit, arriving to your reviewer in London at a civilized 8 o'clock and featuring a major new, if not new piece by David Trilogy. You can read those. And Wayne State's mentioned in the bottom of the page. So Tweedledum and Alice look back over past events. This is an unflagging score, but not a relentless one. The Wayne State Symphonic Choir seemed infallible in all that it did, and snoring well. No doubt attributed to the preparation of the conductor, Dr. Norah IV, a male, to avoid any confusion. Okay, so those are just some comments. A good one from David Trilogy that was posted online. He wrote, first and foremost, David wants, of course he takes himself as the first person, third person rather, wants to take this opportunity to say thank you to Maestro Leonard Slatkin, the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, the singers, finally kudos to Norah, conducted symphonic choir, chorus. They made Dum Dee Tweedle come to life. Thank you to each and every one of you. Had the score signed by David O'Trilogy. Thank you. Dear choir, this is from the alto soloist. You've been amazing, so inspiring and reliable. To Norah with love, Gila Pittman, the soprano. The best one maybe from Leonard Slatkin. To Dr. Jones, with gratitude, Leonard Slatkin. I can notice that. It's true. Dr. Jones. Anyway.
You'd think he'd know by now.
I think he'd know by now. I think he'd know by now.
You should hurt him.
No. But that's not why we do these things. I think we do this for our students, for the community people. And finally, Alexandra Silver took time to write a loving note. She was a narrator. Dear WSU Choir, bravo, from Alexandra, the narrator. Here, wanted to extend my congratulations. You sounded glorious on a complex and challenging piece of new music, and I am in awe. Sing on with admiration, Alexandra. So, that was my experience. Thankless out of the chorus master, preparing Dum Dee Tweedle. Any questions? Any questions? Comments? Or?
Now with all this applause and well-deserved kudos, knowing the degree of difficulty that this was, what would you do now if the call came again?
I changed my number.
What do you think, Marcy? Would you have done this again if you knew what an uphill battle it was?
Probably not. No, but I mean, it really would move me forward in terms of approaching more challenging music. Now that I've done this, I feel more confident in approaches.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question, was what do you think the result of this challenging experience has been sort of on, for the student musicians who were part of it, and just sort of your overall feeling in the department now that you've, you know, succeeded at something so difficult?
I think we're changed. You know, I think we rose to the challenge as best as we possibly could, realizing that this was a world premiere, and a number of us who've been part of other world premieres know that it doesn't mean it's going to be the final statement of his work. So the composer probably will go back, if he hasn't already, look at things that worked, look at things that didn't work, and try it again. But for sure, he'll probably cut out about 20 minutes, I'm assuming. But that's just the way it is. But the students had an opportunity to experience something I don't think they've ever had in their lives before. And I think in years to come, they'll be discussing with their partners and their loved ones and their children, and looking back on it as a very positive experience.
Seems like it's giving you more confidence, as you were saying. I've heard that from other, now the other things say, oh, I give you this.
No, that's true.
Because they did that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great.
Any other questions? Or? Yes, please.
I know what it's like to sing something or play something that I don't know, but that's around. But what's it like playing something that's never been played before, or never? I mean, when you don't have no idea what it's supposed to sound like because it hasn't sounded like anything before. How do you help the chorus get through doing that? How do you get through doing that?
First of all, it's sort of an exciting experience. It's like taking a trip to a place you've never been before, and a place that no one has ever discussed in another part of the world, but having the pleasure of knowing that it's an adventure, it's going to be an adventure. So last semester, there were actually two adventures. We had heard the music of, obviously, Danny Elfman in preparation for the Tim Burton show, the music from the Tim Burton movies that was performed October 30th. But this one, it was, first of all, on a personal note, I wanted to make sure that the chorus was prepared as it possibly could be for Leonard Slatkin. And I wanted to think, okay, what would this world-class conductor expect from the chorus? It had nothing to do with whether we were a community chorus or a university chorus. It was about maintaining a certain standard of excellence that was required in that piece, that he demanded, and that the Detroit Symphony Orchestra as an organization would demand. So it was, how can I say, it was just, I think that's what drives musicians. The opportunity of experiencing something that had never been experienced before, that's fresh and that's new. And it's kind of exciting for me. So I did everything I possibly could to make it work. I'm still not too sure why I did it. And one person put it well, he said, well, I'm not too sure I necessarily thought it was a great piece, but I enjoyed the performance. I enjoyed the performance. I thought, okay, that's legitimate. Any other comments? Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.